I'm Dr. Albert Tsagikyan, and we continue to make the videos exploring paranormal phenomena in, let's say, investigating important or very famous, let's say, robbery cases. And one of them is very famous case, Mrs. Gardner's museum robbery case. For that reason, I met my best friend, Donna DiPietro, who is a person with very strong psychic ability, and she willing to share with us the whole the information she had because she was directly involved in investigation of that case. She was invited, and she has seen a lot of amazing things, and she helped a lot to that investigation. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen, Donna DiPietro. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Donna, thank you very much. I'm quite sure our audience remember our introduction video that you briefly mentioned that very famous case, Mrs. Gardner's museum robbery case, that you have been directly involved. So let's talk today a little bit in details about that. But first of all, how you have been involved in that case?
Okay, I was contacted by Howie Carr, who was a well-known Boston radio talk show host, and he invited my family to his house for dinner, which is the next town over, and he asked me why I never got involved in the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum case, and I said, I don't know, and he said, would you? And I said, yes. So he made the arrangements with security at the museum to go over there.
Very good. Donna, and what do you have seen during your first investigation?
My first investigation, we were in this room called the Short Gallery, and there were two items that were stolen the night of the robbery. And I had a steno pad, and I was writing down what I was seeing, and I was telling the investigator and Howie and the people I was with. I said, who is Richard Smart Alec? And I was told that Richard was one of the security guards the night of the robbery, and he was known as a Smart Alec in the police report, and that no one knows that. And then I pointed on the floor in the next room, and I said, I see a small piece of paper that fell off of the back of one of the stolen items. And it was confirmed right there. The security person said, yes, a label fell off of one of the stolen items,
Right.
And it was right there on the floor where I pointed.
Interesting, very intriguing. But what else you have seen, something unusual, really unusual, that no other psychics could have seen?
Well, that night I came up with the first names of two of the robbery suspects and where they were from. And it's all in detail in my emails between investigators and myself. And I also saw a barn-like structure on the robbery suspect's house. I saw a barn-like structure on his property with a hidden underground chamber. And they didn't go down right away to check that out. It took a number of years for them to go down, and they saw that there is a shed with barn-like doors on it, and they went in and they lifted up the floorboards, and there is a hidden underground chamber there. And I also mentioned the other person, Robert, from Maine, and I had said that I see a restaurant, a seafood restaurant. So years later, they interviewed the widow of that man, and she said, yes, we met the other Robert from Connecticut on a certain day up at a seafood restaurant in Maine. She said, I had lobster, and she said my husband took the cylinders. She doesn't remember if it was 2 or 3 cylinders of the paintings.
Right.
And her husband put them in the trunk of the car of the other person's name, which is also Robert from Connecticut.
Very good. Basically, you have seen, all the suspects.
Yes.
But Donna, is that something unusual happened? Let's say you have seen some ghost over there during your first investigation or second investigation?
Well, both times I was contacted by a spirit. The first time I was there with Howie Carr and other people, Mrs. Gardner ran over to me and grabbed my right arm. We were in the inside garden, and I know what she had on, and I could describe that in detail. But she was saying to get Ellie or Ellen. It was a name like that. So I said to the security person, who is this Ellen or Ellie? And he said he didn't know. Then, on my second investigation, which was with Tom Mashberg, the reporter and editor at the time of the Boston Herald, he wanted to know how I did my thing according to Howie. So he asked Howie to set up something to go with him. So I went there, and this time my son Justin came with me on second investigation. And the archive person, very nice lady, she brought us over to the carriage house. And at the time, the carriage house, it had an apartment upstairs, and artists and residents would stay up there one at a time, and they knocked that, carriage house down, put on the big addition recently.
Right.
So she said it's very, very unusual that I saw Mrs. Gardner grabbing my arm and talking to me about an Ellen or an Ellie or something, because she said one of the artists in residence was this woman, and often as she would go to bed at night, this woman would grab her arm and talk in her ear to get Ellen. And I said, who is Ellen or Ellie? So this archive person said, well, Ella was Mrs. Gardner's personal maid, and whenever she would want something, she would say, go get Ella.
Oh my goodness, it's really amazing. Donna, but really, you mentioned that Mrs. Gardner's spirit hold your hand. Did you really feel that, or did she really move it? How did it feel?
It's very unusual. I mean, I was just, there in the inside garden, beautiful garden, and she ran over to me like panic, in a panic, and she grabbed my right arm, and it alerted me, and she spoke to me in, it was a certain way that I pick up information. It wasn't audio so much.
It wasn't audio,
but it was more like she's talking to me.
To your spirit.
The way she, yes.
Right. Is there any other ghost or spirit still happen to contact you during that first or second investigation?
Yes, on the second investigation with Tom Mashberg from the Boston Herald and my son Justin and other people. I'm also Howie Carr's show producer at the time. She was with us also. We were in this room, and there were these palm plant type things separating one room from the other. And I noticed there was a spirit man, small stature, and he was watching us, hiding. And then he noticed that I could see him, so he came over to me, and he was very kind and loving and protective of Mrs. Gardner. So he came over and he took my right hand, and he said he wanted to show me where a dead person was. So I told the group I was with what was going on. So they followed the spirit and me as we walked along, and we went to this room that had a slab on it. And then I was told by security that is where Mrs. Gardner's casket was during her funeral.
Right. So it's very, very interesting.
Yes.
Donna, but so how the police or FBI use that valuable information you gave them to, let's say, locate the suspects or even arrest them?
Well, I don't think they were ever really told at the time about what I said. And I don't know, maybe years later they were, but I don't know, because they didn't go down to, Robert Gentile's property in Connecticut till years later.
Right.
Yeah.
Immediately.
And then they did find all of that, and in an interview with the son, he said how he never saw his father so upset as when they had flooding in the area. So I was, it's kind of upsetting that they didn't go down right away to search that property.
What do you think why they didn't do that? They didn't believe in your vision, or they didn't have, let's say, some sort of like a legislative right to act immediately? What do you think? What is your take on it?
Well, I think that they didn't want it known that a psychic was telling them this information.
I got it. I can understand it. Can understand it. Do you think maybe our legislators should come up with some law that allowing our law enforcement to use a psychic in that type of cases?
Yes, definitely, because it could be very, very helpful in a lot of cases.
And what do you think, Donna, if let's say our law enforcement try to contact you and ask you for some help, not only you but other psychics around, it might really shed some light to some many cases that still being left in the dark.
It would be great and very helpful, I'm sure.
Very good. So, Donna, thank you very much for helping us with this interview, for your vision and sharing us that amazing story that you have seen in your mind. And I just have one last question: that all the pictures they coming to you when you're investigating, I mean, is that just like a movie picture? What do you see that what happening? The people approaching you, or it's just like someone talking to you, to your spirit? How does it look like?
It's all of the above. I
All of
see
the
it in my
above.
mind. I see the spirits coming toward me, talking toward me, talking with me, and,
But it's
you know,
very clear to you, so it's very
very
clear.
clear, very natural to me.
Okay,
So,
very
so I'm not afraid or anything.
right.
It's
And what was the triggering factor that you started to see that pictures and people? You have been thinking about it, or investigators giving you prior some information to think about
no,
it? No.
I had no idea if I would even pick up any information at all.
Right.
I mean, I was hoping I would pick up something. So that's why, I brought my steno pad writing down these things, and I document everything when I'm working on a case.
Very good.
So,
So thank you very much again. We're going to continue investigate the Donna's psychic ability in application of many other cases, in even discovering and curing deadly diseases. So if you want to follow us, please press the button at the lower right corner on your video to subscribe. Donna, thank you very much again. Looking forward for our next videos.
you're very welcome. It sounds great. I look forward to all the other videos.